Hello. We're just gonna pull in Instagram in here to the live stream, and then we can go live. All right. Cool. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and we are on day 5 of our Overcoming Estrogen Dominance book launch, and that is the book that we are relaunching. And today I want to talk about thyroid nodules because, and since we're talking about the thyroid, I thought it might be also a good idea to talk about Hashimoto's and thyroid conditions and see what questions and struggles you guys are facing. Estrogen dominance plays a role for sure, not only in thyroid nodules, but also in the case of Hashimoto's. And Jen, if we can just correct the spelling of Hashimoto's, that would be great. And also, let's talk about testing. So one of the things that is super common with thyroid issues is that women are told that they don't have a thyroid issue, even though there is a lot of symptoms are pointing otherwise. And this, so let's talk about that as well today. Symptoms, how to get it diagnosed correctly. If you have been having thyroid issues for a while, you're working on it, like you've got nodules now, what do you do, right? So that's what I want to spend time talking about today. This topic is super important for me personally. It's been Hashimoto's with an apostrophe, right? So apostrophe S. This topic is super important for me because I actually was diagnosed with Hashimoto's in 2008 while living in Shanghai in China. And this has been, that's what actually put me on this whole journey of doing health and uncovering the reasons why is my body turning against itself? Like, why do I have this attack on my thyroid by my own immune system? Like, where is this confusion coming from? What's causing all of that? So that's what put me on the map of having my own discoveries. And since then, a lot of practitioners talk about thyroid issues. And so, and so I kind of pivoted my focus to estrogen dominance and perimenopause. But as it happens with all hormones, they never exist in isolation. They always are kind of like working together. So it's very seldom that if you have one hormonal imbalance, you only have estrogen dominance and nothing else. It's typically connected to either women experiencing low thyroid function or having also low estrogen levels, like in menopause and perimenopause, low progesterone. Some women are having estrogen dominance and PCOS at the same time. It's all connected, you guys. Not to mention HPA axis dysregulation, aka adrenal fatigue, which is kind of like a misleading name, but so anyway, I would love to let's get started. And so let me ask you something that I ask all participants on every one of the calls. What would you like me to do today? Would you like me to focus on just reading from the chapter on thyroid nodules, or would you like to do Q&As, or would you like to do like a little bit of both, where we do a bit of book reading and then we do some Q&As with you guys? And so while I'm waiting, because there's a bit of a delay, especially with Instagram, so while we're waiting for the response, I just want to quickly share with you that one of the painful things about thyroid conditions is the fact that it goes undiagnosed a lot. And there's something on average of 3 to 5 practitioners that a person needs to see before getting properly diagnosed. And part of it is because of the testing, incomplete testing. So we can talk about testing today as well, specifically not for nodules, but just testing for a low thyroid function. But let me start off with symptoms first. If you're here, you're probably experiencing some thyroid issues, or you suspect you might be having some, or you've already been diagnosed. But if you have friends who are having the symptoms I'm going to mention in a minute, then maybe you want to tag them or send them this video, because it is one of the most painful things to see is how many women go undiagnosed with thyroid conditions for a very, very long time. It can be between 5 and 7 years, and like I said, 3 to 5 practitioners before they find someone who finally tests them correctly and diagnoses them correctly. So one of the classical things with low thyroid function and Hashimoto's, and I'll explain the difference in just a second, is like a sense of fatigue. And it's not just like a fatigue like, oh, I'm just tired. It's like a fatigue like life has just been sucked out of you. constipation, feeling cold, like you're sitting and everyone is in a t-shirt and you gotta put 2 sweaters on, right? Your limbs are always cold. Another one is that you start losing hair like never before. And it's not like a hair loss here, but it tends to be on the sides and kind of systemic everywhere around your head. You might be also, some women experience like a third of their eyebrows start coming off. Eyelashes starts dropping out. Like, you have something in your eye and the next thing you know, it's like you got 3 eyelashes on your finger, right? Putting on weight. So that's a classical one when you like think nothing has changed, you're eating the same diet, but like quickly, you know what I mean? Like within, like women will report that within 6 months of like not making any other changes, same exercise routine, same eating patterns, not more stress than usual. And then suddenly they find themselves having, like putting on 20, sometimes even more pounds, right? So it's like, whatever, 10 kilograms, right? And or more. Depression, anxiety, constipation, those are some of the very classical ones. You also might feel like your hair is getting really dry. So not just falling, but hair is getting really dry. You might find that your nails are now breaking it really easily and they become really brittle, right? Some women experience really dry skin, like exceptionally dry. And especially, this is a really fascinating one. You guys have got a lot of sand on my legs, but I'm going to try to show it to you. And I am wearing a bikini, so you have to forgive me. But this part of this sheen here, right here, is, if it's really dry, that is a very classical low thyroid function. I don't know why that is so, but that is it just is. So, those, I would say, like, those are the very classical symptoms. And what breaks my heart is like how women go to a doctor's office and saying, I'm tired, I'm depressed, I'm constipated, right? So you get laxatives for constipation, you get pills for your depression, you get, for your weight, you just told to eat less and exercise more, right? And then she goes undiagnosed for many, many years. So this is part of the reason is the problem is that is the incomplete testing process. And so there's 2 things here to testing to realize. So if you've been told that you don't have a thyroid, even though all the symptoms that I'm mentioning right now, by the way, can you guys hear me? Because I just realized I didn't put my mic on. But you realize it's like, hey, all these symptoms she's talking about, like I'm experiencing all of them. Then the problem is most likely with testing. It's a longer conversation why we are not testing a full complete panel, but it's like with everything with allopathic medicine, it can be just like, like why hasn't been done for a long time, right? So the test that you want to have, and Jen, I was wondering if you could type it out, just like super quick, will be 5 markers. The first one is TSH, so everybody does that, right? So thyroid stimulating hormone, even like the most conservative endocrinologist would order that. Second one is you want to do is a free T3, not a total free T3, sorry, not a total T3, but a free T3. Then the next one is a free T4. Okay, free, again, the word is free and not total. And then you want to do 2 antibodies. One is TPO antibody and the anti-TG antibody. Okay, so those 2 antibodies is going to rule out or confirm Hashimoto's disease. That is the complete panel. Now, the second issue is that, all right, so let's just say you got a doctor who's like agreed to test it, right? And by the way, they can give you a pushback in the most ridiculous way. Like I remember, obviously speaking out for myself and pushing a doctor who at that time I had insurance, and I'm just like, I want to get this tested. And she was someone along, playing along. I was just using her for insurance, right? Like I didn't need her advice. And she said to me, why do you want to test the antibodies? They fluctuate every day. I'm like, that's okay. Just test it, please. It is true they can fluctuate slightly, but that's going to confirm or rule out that you have Hashimoto's disease, which is a completely different treatment. When you have hypothyroidism without Hashimoto's, which is a rarity, versus when you have hypothyroidism because of Hashimoto's, it's a very different treatment protocol because you're treating the autoimmune disease and not the thyroid itself. The thyroid is secondary in the approach. Jen, you got the list: TSH, free T3, free T4 antibodies. So let's talk about the second part of the problem. So first is you got to make sure you got a complete test. Second thing is you want to make sure is that the ranges that they are reading it in is within the functional ranges, not a sick person's range, but a healthy person's range. Let me give you an example. And Jen, do we have an article or something where we can refer? I know we have a PDF. Is that somewhere in an article? It is. Okay. If we can post that, that will be awesome. So the second issue is the ranges. And the range, let me give you an example. I'll just give you two examples. One is TSH. The lab work might say it's okay between 0.5 to 4.5. That's a huge range. If you think about it, it's from 0.5 to 4.5 is basically 9 times, right, variant. That's huge. So functional medicine looks at it and say, no. In order to be healthy, you want to be between 1 and 2. Okay. Second thing, for example, free T3 is another good example. The range again is super wide and it keeps widening, but you want to look at what is a healthy person's free T3, and a healthy person's free T3 is between 3.5 and 4.5. Okay, so not below that. So that in itself, when you go back and look at your lab work, and Jen has just posted the articles. For those of you who are guys on Instagram, you want to go to hormonesbalance.com, and there's an article that talks about thyroid. Just search for thyroid labs to ask for, and that article will show up. We have a whole panel, including the ranges that you should be in. So that rules out or confirms whether it has, whether you truly have thyroid issues or not. Now, what's the difference between hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's, right? So like I said, hypothyroidism is actually pretty rare. Most of the time, people don't even know they have Hashimoto's disease. And it's important to know this because when you have Hashimoto's, you have an autoimmune disease. It means that your own immune system is attacking at the thyroid, is launching an attack on the thyroid. And as a result of that, the thyroid is having problems functioning correctly. And so you really are not focusing on treating the thyroid and taking things like thyroid medication as much as it's helpful during the time of figuring out what's going on, because it might give you the mental energy and by the way, brain fog, I forgot to say, is one of the symptoms also of a low thyroid function, because your thyroid is like a speed pedal, right? Is that you are basically going to be treating the autoimmune component and not the thyroid itself. Because when the attack of the immune system stops on the thyroid has the ability of either fully reviving itself or partially. Let me give you an example with what happened to me. I was diagnosed with Graves' disease in my late 20s, which is the opposite. So it's an autoimmune condition that causes hyperthyroidism, right? So I was going like this. I was talking in a 1,000 miles an hour. I had anxiety attacks. My heart will be palpitating. I'll be sitting like laying in bed, and I could see just my heart just going pound, 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 like my shirt just bouncing off my chest. I would yell at a waiter for bringing the wrong item in. I mean, I was just unpredictably crazy. So then I was put on thyroid blockers, right? It's because they're like, well, your thyroid is overactive, so just block the thyroid. It's a little bit like, when you have a leak in the house and you're like, oh, honey, there is a leak up in the living room in the corner. Can you see that? And the husband goes like, yeah, don't worry about it. I'm going to come and fix it. The guy brings a whole pail of paint and just goes, oh, I'm just going to paint over this damn thing. And then, of course, a month later, you've got mold growing there now, right? It'd be like, well, let me paint it over again, right? I mean, that's what taking medication for, for a broken thyroid or an autoimmune disease really is. Like, instead of going like, hey, honey, maybe we should just hire a roofer and come and fix the roof, and stop the leak, right? So with an autoimmune disease, it's the same thing. So not surprisingly, my thyroid kind of got fixed for a few years. And after that, I came back with a vengeance. This time around, I developed Hashimoto. I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's disease, which now my thyroid went the other way, which was going into slow function. So I was very foggy. I was very moody. I was very anxious. I had anxiety attacks like I've never had before. I couldn't get out of bed at times. I was so exhausted, right? And so I've never put on weight, but this is just me. But majority of women put on a lot of weight. So what happened here, right? The autoimmune component was never fully addressed, and that's what ended up resulting in Hashimoto's. Now, when I'm so glad that I got diagnosed really early, I'm feeling really blessed that my doctor, as much as she could not offer any sensible solutions, was willing to test, and she confirmed it that that's what it was, based on my history of Graves. And that's really what put me into doing this work of asking the question, why do I have an autoimmune disease? What can I do to help myself? And that's when I started, actually my practice in 2010 started off with doing thyroid coaching. And because I figured out how to lower the antibodies, how to heal, how to lower the antibodies and put Hashimoto's into remission. You never turn it off, because once it's turned on, it's turned on, but be asymptomatic, meaning having no symptoms, right? And so it's been really good. I've been feeling really, really great. So I'm super passionate about this topic, especially when I travel here and I meet all sorts of people, and these women tell me like, ever since by the way, thyroid happens a lot of time, postpartum, in menopause, or after something really stressful. It's not limited to those, but that's when we see a lot of occurrences of that going haywire at these points in your life. And so, I travel around Mexico now. I meet all sorts of women, and I hear so many times of like, I don't know, maybe it's perimenopause, but I've just put on so much weight. I just can't think straight anymore. I'm feeling so depressed. I'm on like 3 different medications, right? And, so it's a common thing. It could also be menopause, right? That's another thing. So get it tested properly, get it diagnosed properly, and then whether it's thyroid or something different. So, so let's talk about nodules. So nodules and the connection between thyroid and estrogen dominance, or low thyroid function and estrogen dominance, is a couple of things that is happening here. So number one issue is that when you have estrogen dominance, it tends to inflame the body. So when you have an autoimmune condition like Hashimoto's, you tend to be on the inflamed side already. Estrogen dominance fuels that inflammation. So that's number one bad news, and a good reason, and not a good reason to get estrogen dominance under some kind of control. The second reason is that what's happening is that the thyroid produces a hormone mainly called T4. And the T4 hormone then gets converted to T3. T3 is a working horse. That's what gives you nice hair, good mental function, warmth in your body, nice skin, right? Ability to metabolism, so turning fat into energy, right? That's your thyroid hormone. That's what it does. So what happens is when you have estrogen, so there is a number of things that can compromise the conversion of T4 to the T3 hormone. And there's a number of them, right? So it could be toxins, it could be different nutritional deficiencies, it could be lack of iodine, for example, it could be lithium, for example. So people who are having mental health issues, for example, tend to have a lot of thyroid issues as well, because the conversion is compromised, right? Vitamin B12 deficiency, vitamin D3 deficiency, and the list goes on. But also one of the things that inhibits the T4 to T3 conversion is also estrogen dominance. Excess estrogen slows down the T4 to T3 hormone conversion. So furthermore, this is the last point of the connection between those two, is that estrogen dominance is what causes thyroid nodules, the growth of thyroid nodules. And as much as most thyroid nodules are completely benign, and very few of them lead to cancers, and majority of thyroid cancers are not, they don't spread, they just, but what they result in is that most of the time you're gonna get either both lobes or one lobe removed because of that. So, I mean, no one wants that, right? Because then you're on thyroid medication for the rest of your life, and you're always tweaking the doses, and you have to remember to take it, you have to take it away from food, blah, blah, blah. So so I had 3 thyroid nodules. I can't remember whether, but it was 2 and 1 on my lobes. And every 2 years or so, I go and get a sonogram done, right? So just to get it checked. And the sonogram shows a lot of things, because it not just shows whether the nodules are present or not, but it also shows the quality of the tissue of the thyroid gland. And I remember, I had it done. I should do it again, but I had it done about 2 years ago in Boulder. And the woman was like, scanning, and we were chatting, right? And she's like, what makes you, and I tell her what I was doing for as my career. And she was fascinated because, she's a technician, right? So she loves the health stuff. And she said, I'm not supposed to make any comments here and and I'm not making any diagnosis here for you. But, since we're chatting about this, I will tell you, I've never seen a healthy tissue like that on the thyroid. It was someone who had a history of Hashimoto's. And I was like, well, thank you for saying this. But not only are my thyroid nodules gone, but it's also my thyroid is looking really good. And I think I attribute a big part of that to, actually living this shit. I actually eat the way I write about in this book. And so that's why this is my invitation for you to, first of all, have hope that if you have thyroid nodules, they are completely reversible. You can reverse those, so you don't have to live in fear. You don't have to be going there every 6 months and get it tested and poked and getting biopsies done, and just be free from that kind of stuff. And God forbid, developing thyroid cancer and getting your thyroid removed. This is really not, what health is about, right? It's just having this constant fears. So what do you do? And so this is where the chapter on, I forgot the name of the page number. That's what we can do a little bit of reading here from today. And by the way, we're also giving a book away. So a copy of my book, Overcoming Estrogen Dominance. We're giving a copy of a book away. And my only ask is that you tag a couple of friends who you think might be having thyroid issues or estrogen dominance issues and might benefit from the book. Tag them in the comments, and then we'll announce the winner just before we wrap up for today. So before I do the reading, let me see, what did you guys decide? Did you guys decide to have a reading? Let me just scroll up to the top. Do you want a reading, or do you prefer to do just Q&As? Can I just comment? This is one person, Squirrely Girl, saying daughter was with really high thyroid antibodies, was told she's fine, come back in a year. Is this Hashis? Yes. So this is a good example. I actually didn't finish telling you the complete story of what happened with me. Was that, and this is classical, right? Is that the antibodies are high, and then I'm even surprised that your provider tested for it, but good that now she knows. So the story is that the tricky part is that whatever you say the thyroid is normal, like I think what I said just now at the beginning of this call, right, is that if you actually look at write the full panel and you look at the ranges, you might actually realize it's not particularly looking as good as they say it does. But it's also, Western allopathic medicine doesn't have a solution to lower your antibodies. There isn't a pill that can give you, you're like, hey, take this, it's going to take it away. To deal with Hashimoto's as an autoimmune condition requires a systemic approach of changing the diet, removing whatever is the inflammation, which really, honestly, is not all that different to what we have in this book. My good friend, Dr. Isabella Wendt, who specializes in the Hashimoto's and hypothyroidism, her books and my books are very similar in that way. We all avoid gluten, dairy, soy, corn. There's no eggs in our protocols. We have very similar nutritional protocols, as in get your vitamin D3, B12, your B6, B1, topped up, make sure you've got enough zinc, the list goes on. So it's actually very similar approaches, and that's what needs to be taken care of. But that's not a conversation with your average physician, right? Who's going to be telling you like, well, change your diet. So now my story was that actually my TSH, free T3 and free T4 were within ranges, even within functional ranges. Like my TSH was, like 1.2, perfect within even functional ranges. My free T3, which is the most important one, was also I can't remember, like 3.7. Remember I said 3.5 to 4.5. So I was within a range, right? But I was feeling like crap. I had anxiety attacks. My hair was falling out. I had terrible mood swings. I had severe fatigue. I couldn't get out of bed. And so it is, that's why it's so important to confirm these antibodies, to rule out or to confirm Hashimoto's, and then treat it accordingly. Will this live be saved? Yes, I will be posting this live to our pages. Wherever you're watching, it's going to be posted later on this evening. Debbie's saying, I have extremely high antibodies and cannot seem to lower it. Any suggestions? Yeah, so if you tried, look, there's so many reasons why we have high antibodies. I just touched like the nutrition part. There's nutritional deficiencies. Really, I think for those of you who's dealing with Hashimoto's and you want to go deeper, follow my friend, Dr. Isabella Wentz. It could be anything from parasitic infections. It could be because, believe it or not, low stomach acid can be causing the H. pylori can be a contributing factor. Stress can be a contributing factor. High cortisol levels can be, poor liver function and elevated liver enzymes. There's a long list that can be triggering these antibodies to go up. Let me just also be like super transparent, right? I like to say that my Hashimoto's is under control, is in remission. And that's true, I would say 60 to 70% of the time. When I want to go crazy, let's say I go to Italy and I have a bit of espresso and I have an occasional gelato, and I would be like, oh, screw this whole gluten-free thing. I want to have a pasta like with everybody else. And, or I go through stressful times in my life, right? Then, the antibodies go out of whack. I will be honest about that. And I generally don't feel it right away because I immediately go back to my baseline. I know what to do to fix it and not let it run rampant so that it starts becoming highly symptomatic and I crash and burn. So it's just basically managing it, having it under controls. I've come to a point where I'm at this place right now. Most of you are saying Q&As. So you don't need to read my book. So have all of those followed your book? Gluten-free for 4 years, still can't fix it. So like I said, there's a lot of other things you're going to rule out, including, interesting one is like parasites, for example. There is, and there is a really, I'm getting to appreciate parasites more so now than ever before. There's a great lab called Para Wellness, P-A-R-A, Wellness, Para Wellness, and they are the best lab when it comes to parasites. I had parasite testing done before through other labs, and they're like, came back with nothing. And I did Para Wellness, and it's like, oh, okay, that explains the issue here. So Jen, could you also drop that into the comments in Instagram, the full list of those thyroid issues? I'm not going to comment on medications because that's not my area. Me too, but I got the surgery to remove the thyroid, then I became hypothyroid. Yeah, of course. If you don't have a thyroid, then you become hypothyroid. Then you basically have to go on thyroid meds for the rest of your life and manage it from there. It's, I know a lot of people who are on thyroid medications for life and they manage it well and they have very complete and very satisfying and highly fulfilling lives. So it's completely possible. Did you use iodine? That's a great question. So iodine is quite controversial in the thyroid world. There are practitioners who are for it, and then there is practitioners who are against it. I tend to side with the ones that are against iodine just because iodine can raise the antibodies. So if somebody is having hypothyroidism without Hashimoto's, which is rare, then having additional iodine can help. Give you an example. They found in parts of West Africa, like in Nigeria, you may see, maybe from, I don't know, movies, or if you watch documentaries or whatever, you're interested in that kind of stuff. Women there tend to be large, right? And it's not because they're eating more or whatever. And they also tend to have like goiters here. So they found that in West Africa, for whatever reason, there was not enough iodine in the soil. And so the food was deficient in iodine. And so the women were developing a lot of thyroid issues, hypothyroidism, right? And then hence the tremendous weight gain. By adding iodine to their diet, that has completely turned around, and that's helpful. Now, in the context of our Western world, I have seen too many people who go straight into iodine without checking for Hashimoto's first, and then they go into thyroid storm. When I was in private practice, I had a client who once called me and she said that her previous practitioner gave her iodine and she ended up in a hospital with thyroid storm. It can also bring you into hyperthyroidism, and there's enough studies, and Dr. Isabella Wentz can be the first one to tell you this, is that there is a ton of people studies that show how the Hashimoto's antibodies go up when you introduce iodine. So you're going to be treading very, very carefully when it comes to iodine. All right, Jen, let's do some questions. I see that you are marking some, so let's go for it. So Lena is saying, how do you know if bovine colostrum affects thyroid function? I've been taking it for a few months and my TSH is low. I'm in subclinical hyperthyroidism. Before that, I was hypo. By the way, Dr. Eric Osansky has just released a new book. He just messaged me the other day saying that he's competing with me on Amazon listing. And so it was, and he specializes in hyperthyroidism. So I would suggest strongly to follow him. He does Graves and hyperthyroidism, so that will be a good one to follow. Look, I think it's quite coincidental. When you have low TSH, it just means that you are hyper, so you already know that. And so, no, the bovine itself should not be affecting it unless you are taking thyroid medications, and the thyroid has just improved so much that your medications should be adjusted and actually lowered because the bovine colostrum has helped. But I think that's all I can say about that. Would you suggest to shrink nodules? I'll take selenium. Great. So that's a great starting point. Selenium is wonderful in helping your antibodies to lower. Remember that it's never one thing that's going to help. It's always typically it's a combination of things. So a really nice clean diet, selenium, zinc being sufficient, having good vitamin D3 levels, vitamin B12, B6, B1, all of that is going to be tremendously helpful in managing your overall health. So what I suggest to do is to follow the protocol in overcoming estrogen dominance, the thyroid nodules protocol, which is really you just working specifically on the estrogen dominance issue. So clearing the estrogens correctly, which is what the book is mainly about. But I also want to let me give you the essential oils formula here for thyroid. It's a thyroid blend. It's from my good friend, Dr. Marissa Snyder, who's the author of the Essential Oils for Hormone Solution. So her recipe has got 2 drops of frankincense essential oil, 1 drop of lavender essential oil, 1 drop of chamomile essential oil, 1 drop of rose geranium, and you take 2 teaspoons of jojoba, sweet almond, or fractionated coconut oil. You blend all of them together, and then you massage it into your thyroid. That could be a great one. You can also add them into castor oil, 2 teaspoons of castor oil, and do the same thing of just rubbing it into your thyroid. That could be a really nice addition. So those are some of the things that can be really helpful. Again, to me, this is a bit of a point solution rather than, a holistic approach to going more upstream and addressing it to where it works. All right, let's do another question. Para Wellness for Paratest testing, where is it? They're in Colorado. I don't think you can order it yourself. You need to find a practitioner to order that for you. Para Wellness is P-A-R-A, just 1 R. Is high LDL cholesterol related to Hashimoto's? How to fix it? I have been taking red yeast rice, but still not normal. That's a great question. So yes, it can be. But high LDL cholesterol can also be connected to your amount of sugar you're consuming. It can also be connected to low estrogen levels. Remember, when our estrogens start dropping as we go into menopause, that's the reason why women in menopause struggle with cardiovascular health. In menopause, women have the same chances of developing cardiovascular diseases as men do, right? Something that is not talked about very much. And that's all of that. So I wouldn't just look at Hashimoto's. I would look at all these other things that I talked about. What about non-GMO soy? So soy in itself, it's nothing wrong with it. The question is whether you're tolerating it. So during the time of doing the elimination diet, which the book is, it's also there's a lot of recipes here, you guys, with meal plans and stuff. So we avoid soy just because quite a lot of people have a problem with soy. So if you tolerate it fine, then that should be okay, just small amounts. But here's the thing: soy can also be remember how I was talking about the inhibition of the conversion of T4 to T3 hormone, right? So what your thyroid is producing and then converting it to T3, which is your working horse. That's what the body actually uses to function well and for you to look good and think straight, think fast. So soy can be in large amounts, can be causing a thyroid problem. There was a couple of studies that were done on how women went vegan and then they started doing all these soy substitutes, highly processed soy, that eventually led them to like hair loss and then developing all sorts of thyroid issues, right? And that's because of the excess amount of soy. So I would say if you want to do soy, it's not in the form of like soy milk and all the fake soy products, which is just really terrible, but it's more in a context of doing occasional tempeh or doing an occasional natto. Yesterday we talked about natto, Natto, that is fermented soy, right? Or having an occasional miso soup, right? These kind of, soy is very different from like the fake tofu. Is that what it's called? Tofu. Okay. And any eggs with Hashis. So again, it kind of depends on the person. The reason why in overcoming estrogen dominance, we taken eggs out is because a lot more people have problems with eggs than they think. So we wanted to give you options of learning how to eat without eggs for the 28 days, and then incorporate eggs back in. This is one of the things you guys will learn here when you complete the elimination diet. Then I talk about how do you reintroduce these foods and what symptoms you look for. Then your body, to read your body and get the signal, whether is this food my friend or is my body kind of really struggling with this food, right? So eggs are a good example of someone who, let me give you an example. People introduce eggs and, for example, feel nauseous. They introduce eggs and they might start feeling like having terrible mood swings. Some people feel a great sense of fatigue, right? And you would have never connected that to eggs without removing them first. So for that reason, I get, for example, zits if I eat too many of them, right? So you wouldn't really know until you remove them and then reintroduce them. If breast specialists say stay away from estrogen but continue progesterone, can I still take your DIM, Brocopyra, and calcium D-glucarate? Is it because I have lumps in my breast? Yes, you can. It's yeah. So yes, you can, absolutely. And because you're still producing your own estrogen. And if you start developing symptoms of low estrogen, right? So things like, for example, incontinence, trouble sleeping, forgetfulness, you're not feeling very sharp in your head, you're beginning to forget words, you are, then further down the road, maybe like osteopenia starts kicking in, then it might be a good idea to maybe assess and work with a practitioner who might be wanting to reassess you and say, why are you stopping estrogen in the first place? Because not all estrogen is bad. So it all depends on the practitioner. There is still, unfortunately, a lot of practitioners who demonize bioidentical hormones and will say that hormones kill women, and it's all because of the World Health Initiative that just put a bad rep on bioidentical hormones, and it's just really unfortunate because a lot of women are suffering because of that. So, okay, let's do another one. My mom has hypothyroidism. Doctor who has her on levothyroxine. She has chronic allergies and sinusitis, insomnia, and could see moss benefit her. Also, what would you suggest for her to possibly have her symptoms and go off meds? I don't know why specifically you talk about sea moss. Sea moss is high on iodine, and so iodine, like I explained earlier, adding iodine to someone without confirming whether the person has or does not have Hashimoto's is very risky, and I would not recommend that. When somebody has allergies and sinusitis and insomnia, there is probably a lot of other things that are going on. The first thing I will do, and I'll say this to anyone, and many of you asking me like the very point solution. Do I, what about this and what about that? Can I add berberine? Can I just add, this one red rice supplement or whatever, right? You would never out supplement a good diet. So you got to start off with a good diet. So my question for you is that what kind of a diet is your mom on? If for starters, I would recommend getting off gluten, dairy, soy, corn, minimizing sugar, start using high quality probiotics. Most sinus issues and allergies, most allergies are due to liver issues. Most sinus issues, a lot, not always, but are due to candida, yeast overgrowth. So I think there's a lot of things that your mom could be or should be doing rather than be adding CMOS. CMOS is like, I mean, adding any like 1 point solution of like the one supplement that's gonna be potentially changing everything for a person, removing all the symptoms is a little bit like, you know, you've got this fire that's going on in the, you know, on the field, and we'll be like, oh, can we just kill the fire and that's the 1 point, right? You've got to kind of look at it holistically and say, what do we need to do to manage this whole fire here, right? So starting off with a really good diet, supporting the liver, taking care of potentially candida might be a really good solution. Parasites, can you share your testing and your protocol to resolve them? Another webinar. Yeah, so I'm not an expert in this area, so I'm not going to do that. But if you follow Para Wellness, like I said, they have a lot of resources. And when you get the testing done through them, then they actually design a whole protocol for you of what's going to be, what supplements, what herbs to take and how to take them. Also, will it be offering overcoming estrogen dominance in Spanish? Yeah, I'm sorry, but not right now. No, but my first book, mi primero libro, este en español. So you can get that on, I don't know where you are, but if you are in Mexico, then on Amazon Mexico, actually, my book is available. It was translated to Spanish. So it's a great book too. And it's not just focusing on estrogen dominance, but it covers 8 different hormonal imbalances. So it's a very similar principle of recipes, getting off gluten, getting off dairy, and replenishing all the different nutritional deficiencies. Can vitamin E supplement help with estrogen dominance? On its own, no. You've got to implement a lot of other things. That's what the book is about. Okay. How long can it take to get rid of nodules if we follow your protocol? I've been following your protocols in Cooking for Balance, plus overcoming estrogen dominance, and also did your thyroid detox one last fall. So I would say the biggest question is, and thank you for the support and following the work and doing the work. Most important, like you made the effort to do the work, and so kudos to you for that. You know, the first thing I will do, Catherine, is to look at your estrogen dominance. Like, how are you metabolizing estrogen at this point, and what is your estrogen to progesterone ratio? And you can get that tested through Dutch tests. For those of you on Instagram, we posted the lab work. We've got a full panel of labs that are developed with yourlabwork.com, specifically for our community. So the link is there. And Jen, can we post the yourlabwork.com/hormones balance link here for folks to know what to order the labs? Because that is going to be the most important indicator. Thyroid nodules are the result of excess estrogen that is being produced, right? Or as in too many dirty estrogens, or it could also be that your estrogen to progesterone ratio is off. So when you test, you know which one is it, and then you know how to fix it. Are you making, are you making another recipe book? No, because it takes 2 years to write one. Okay, so great. So Catherine's saying, yes, I've just ordered Dutch and took an appointment with my naturopathic doctor. That's awesome. How can I boost my T3 naturally? My estrogen and progesterone are low, and my T3 has always been low and now went even lower. I'm already gluten and dairy free, and my vitamin D and B are great. So look at our resources on the thyroid that we talked about, Elise, and see what else is inhibiting the conversion of T4 to T3. The question is, how much are you producing enough free T4 in the first place, right? And do you have you ruled out Hashimoto's disease? That's really important, because if you keep having an attack on your thyroid, it's very hard for the thyroid to work optimally and produce sufficient T4. That's the first issue, right? The second issue is that even if sufficient T4 is produced, then the question is what's stopping the conversion of T4 to T3? And it could be, like I said, a lot of different things that can be impacting that. So it's a great starting point that you are free of dairy and soy. That's and gluten and dairy. That's awesome. Vitamin D, B levels. That's wonderful. But they could be other things that are inhibiting the conversion. So take a look at our article, and there's more information there. I'm gonna just hop over to Instagram for just a quick second. And hey, for those of you guys, so a couple of things. One is we are giving the book away. So just tag 2 friends that you think this might be helpful for in your comments, and we're gonna be giving the book away at the end of this call, which is gonna be happening soon. And we've got 3 more days happening with the book launch, Overcoming Estrogen Dominance. So if you want to get the notifications, if you haven't been getting them yet, so you want to get notifications about the book, like notifying you when I'm going live, and then recipes, and then we have expert interviews every day. There is new content that's opening up. Then just send us a message. Just comment in the comments of those lives right now the word overcome, and then the instant messenger bot will kick in and will do its magic. Let's see. What do you think about nettle tea for inflammation? Yeah, great. I mean, that's one great thing to add. And we have a nettle tea actually recipe for you on the events page. So if you're signing up for the notifications, and by the way, I know I'm jumping around a little bit. So I just want to say for tomorrow, we're talking about hot flashes. And then, actually, I'm kind of blanking out. So tomorrow we're talking about hot flashes. And then we are going to be talking about, so today's thyroid. Let me see. So let me just tell you first, what we have covered in the past was understanding estrogen dominance. Then we had daily breast self-care for cystic breast and benign cysts. Then we had weight gain, hips and thigh cellulite. And then we covered heavy periods, painful periods, and PMS. And then we had fibroids yesterday. So today's hypothyroidism. And tomorrow's hot flashes. Oh yeah, so we have only 2 more days to go. So, and then we have detox your products with looking at how to detox your kitchen, your bathroom, and the products that are contributing towards estrogen dominance, or the ingredients specifically that are contributing towards that. I can't believe it. It's gone really fast. So just message us overcome, and then we'll get you get to the page of the events just to show you have access then to all the content. It's all for free. You don't have to sign up for anything or pay for anything. Okay, so let's take a look. Let me see what else is there. How do you okay, so I think we talked about reversing nodules. Can trauma be a cause? Yes, trauma can be a huge contributing factor towards any hormonal imbalance, any autoimmune disease, right? So treating that and managing that is definitely going to be part of your health playbook. How does low ferritin play into hypothyroidism? Great question. So low ferritin is going to be one of the factors that inhibits the conversion of T4 to T3 hormone. Is it true that levels of antibodies does not necessarily correlate to the level of disease? I would not entirely agree with that. I see that when people put in the work, it does really go down. And when we, do crazy things, then it does go up. So I think this is more of an allopathic narrative. Like I was talking about at the beginning of the call, how my doctor didn't want to test my Hashimoto's antibodies because she said they fluctuate every day and makes no point. I said to her, that's okay. I just want you to test it because I was just wanted for insurance to cover it. Thank you for the So we talked about nettle tea. Yes, nettle tea is great. That's one of the recipes. It's in a content lineup that we have released to you guys on that page. And so one of the tricks that you might want to learn about making nettle tea And we're going into that time of the year when nettles are going to start coming up. So if you have access to a nettle patch, put on your gloves and go and get them fresh, because there's just nothing better than a fresh nettle tea. And it's so nutritionally rich, or if you know how to cook it. So it's like you cook it exactly like spinach, right? And it's so nutritionally dense that, a couple of years ago, I was in this botany camp and I cooked a whole bunch of nettles, and people were like, even though they were all like, earth loving people and wild, sort of half wild people there. And when I cooked it, the nettles, like, I made it with like nuts and some soy sauce or whatever it was, coconut aminos and olive oil and stuff. People were like, whoa, this is intense. And the intensity of nettles comes from the fact that it's so nutritionally dense. It's almost like you could taste the ferritin, the iron in it. It was fascinating to see. Not everybody liked them because it was too intense for people. So, but that's how real food, wild food tastes, and nutritionally it's very dense. So one of the tricks that I want to just tell you about, how to make a nettle tea, whether you're making that from fresh nettles or dried nettles, is to not pour hot boiling water on it, but like 30% lower below boiling. I've lived in America for 15 years and I still don't know what boiling point is in Fahrenheit. I apologize, but I'll tell you that in centigrade, which is what I grew up with, it's 100 degrees. So then you want to go to 70 degrees centigrade, whatever that is in Fahrenheit. Please feel free to share it and educate me. And then you just take 30% lower of that. The reason why is because then you're preserving the vitamin C in the nettles, which otherwise you're going to kill the vitamin C with hot water. Teen moms is saying, I've been struggling since 18. I'm now 57. Labs are always changing. Checked every 3 months. Can't take Armour due to heart palpitations. Trying to get T3 at a better level. Address adrenals, diet. Yeah, I hear you. It's thyroid and autoimmunity it can be a complex issue for some people. There's some people who have Hashimoto's and they change, like they get off gluten, they correct the D3. Boom, antibodies drop, right? And there's other people who, like Isabella and I are good examples of that, who have had to do so many different things in order to lower antibodies and manage to have those antibodies down. So T-moms, I would say work with someone who really specializes in thyroid just to help you uncover what's going on and help you. An Armour thyroid is not for everyone. I think it's over-advertised. Armour thyroid there's a lot of T3 in it, and it could be that your body's just reacting to it. Also, the other thing I've seen is that people who can't do Armour thyroid because of the T3 is people who tend to have cortisol levels that are on the high side and very upregulated HPA axis, so your adrenals, so to speak, right? So that T3 is just like hits them, and that's where you get this heart palpitation. So it might not be a bad idea to sometimes go into the synthetic side, like Synthroid. Do you recommend kelp? I don't, because it's got very high iodine. How can you increase my T3s? I think I talked a little bit about that toxic free chick. You've got to make sure your T4 is in a good level, first of all, and then look at what inhibits the conversion of T3. And there's so many different things that can go wrong there. Or there's different things you can do to support it. All right, the book, you guys are ready? The book for today goes to Beth McDougall, trichologist. Could you email us at support@hormonesbalance.com? I'm just gonna drop it in here. Beth, if you could, support@hormonesbalance.com, and that's our team. And just one caveat, we ask you that you are in the United States, please, because that's one of our requirements. On AI after breast cancer, are you talking about like aromatase inhibitor? I think that's what it is, right? Is your book protocol still appropriate? Assume now I no longer have estrogen dominance. Well, that's not correct. So you may still have estrogen dominance because you can't control how your body breaks down those estrogens to clean and dirty estrogens. Oh, I see. Sorry, you are on aromatase inhibitor, right? So yes, it might help you. Is it Dorothy? Okay, so the person who posted this, I strongly suggest for you to work with a functional oncologist to help you navigate the waters with that, because when you're on a aromatase inhibitor, you're basically completely killing the conversion of testosterone to estrogens, right? So immediately that puts you into menopause, which then can present its own challenges. You're becoming a full-on menopausal lady, and some women do okay with that, and others really suffer. The quality of life is really, really poor. So, and that is not the issue here. As you understand, right? I hope that if you follow us for a while, hopefully that estrogen in itself is not the problem here. Is how your body breaks down those estrogens to clean and dirty estrogens, producing too many dirty, and that happens in your liver and your gut. That's what needs to be changed, or it can be also, you can have both. Estrogen to progesterone ratio is off, and so correcting that is what gives you the freedom, and not just suppressing the conversion to estrogen and putting you into menopause. It's like, women who have endometriosis are the treatment for a girl who's 25 years old. The allopathic medicine treatment is to put her into menopause so that she doesn't produce any estrogen, because estrogen fuels endometriosis growth. So might as well just put her into menopause. I mean, you can just imagine a 25-year-old being in menopause, not to mention the fact that she now can't get pregnant if she wanted to. Her sex life is completely out of the question. Her brain isn't functioning very well, because now she's behaving like a 75-year-old lady. It's tragic, the things that are happening. So I will be wrapping up, you guys, and I'm just gonna take a quick look at the article about the T3 is on our website, hormonesbalance.com, hormones with an S, hormonesbalance.com, and then you can get all the articles. Just enter thyroid, and there's a whole bunch of articles there. Roasted seaweed snacks. So seaweed snacks are okay because they are nori. Nori is actually one of the lowest in iodine, so that's fine. The ones that are super high is like kelp, also known as kombu. That's extremely high, but the nori ones are just like super low, so that's not a concern. Beth, so I dropped it in the comments, support@hormonesbalance.com. I dropped it in the comments, and so you get the book. Okay. All right. So I think we are good. I hope this is helpful, you guys. I know you have a lot of questions. I feel like the book is a really great adjunct and add-on to if you have hypothyroidism and thyroid and Hashimoto's and all that. Really the best resource to follow is Dr. Isabella Wentz's work to do the baseline work. This is really great when you're still struggling with, like, you've got your Hashimoto's under control, you got your hypothyroidism under control, but you're like, I still have those thyroid nodules. What do I do? And this is where Dr. Isabella and I always collaborate with each other. So I do like the estrogen dominance piece, and she does the thyroid piece, because it's they are complementary to each other, and one helps the other. So I hope this is helpful, you guys, and I look forward to seeing some of you tomorrow on the call. If you're dealing with hot flashes, I've got a lot of juicy, good information for you tomorrow on how to overcome it, how to address it. And I hope you make yourself a wonderful evening for the rest of the day, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.